This is a Global Original Podcast. As you can hear from the echoing sound of my voice, I am recording this inside Matt Hancock's head. It's an empty void of nothingness. Now, a couple of Easters ago, we had another airborne menace to worry about, but back then, it wasn't an invisible one.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio, making a picture again.
It's a radio show, dear. So, never mind about the fog, how about the smog? Smog has been forming around London's tallest buildings as warnings have been issued over high levels of air pollution over the Easter weekend. The official warning is don't go out. And as I was saying, I noticed that as I enjoyed a libation from an elevated position on Thursday, which is a nice way of saying I was on the booze on a roof. You could barely see the glass in front of your face up there.
Dreadful.
The Shard and other skyscrapers were shrouded in a veil. And air monitoring systems said that there had been a spike in dangerous PM 2.5 particles across London. Not PM 2.5 particles. They're my least favourite. These particles are so tiny that their width is several times smaller than a human hair, and they're more likely to get into the bloodstream when inhaled and have been linked to heart and lung disease from asthma to cancer. Heart and lung diseases from asthma to cancer. Oh my God, we're all going to die. It almost makes you want to protest about the environment, doesn't it?
No.
The Met Office has forecast high levels of air pollution across the southeast of England until Monday, and Public Health England warned vulnerable groups, including the elderly, to take precautions. That's where we're at. The authorities are advising against breathing. You can breathe out, just don't breathe in. A spokesperson said adults and children with lung problems and adults with heart problems should reduce strenuous physical exertion, particularly outdoors and particularly if they experience symptoms, as in death. People with asthma may find they need to use their reliever inhaler more, and older people should also reduce physical exertion. You know, I think most older people are way ahead of you there. They don't reach forward to get the remote to change channels when something awful comes on. Physical exertion. I mean, that explains Jeremy Carl's viewing figures, don't it? And all that is bad, but it gets worse. The Met Office believes this weekend's high air pollution levels have been partially caused by particles being blown into the UK by winds from Germany. What? EU pollution, because it comes over here and takes our lives. No! Pollution has also built up because of an extended period of warm and settled weather, and temperatures are likely to keep rising towards 77 degrees. I just cannot believe it. 77. Amazing. And this, it is going to be lovely outside, but as long as you wear a gas mask. And this is after the introduction of the ultra-low emissions zone in London this month, which London's mayor said he was doing something about the quality of the air, doing something about the environment. No, he isn't. It's pretending to do something without actually doing anything. I mean, are there fewer cars on the roads?
Negative.
No, not to my eyes. There's still nowhere to park. The Mail says all vehicles except black cabs must now pay a charge to enter the zone in central London, with car drivers and motorcycle riders paying £12.50 and lorries, buses and coaches being charged £100. No! Wrong. I don't think that's true at all. But never mind, factual accuracy is not one of their things. I think you get a pass if your petrol car was born after 2005 and if your diesel car was created soon after that. In other news, they're pretending that, they're saying that it does actually make a difference, the ULEZ charge in London. It's made a tremendous difference so far. According to experts, the ultra-low emission zone has already led to a reduction of approximately 20% in NO2. Nitrous oxide? No. NO2. Nitrous oxide. What is NO2? Isn't nitrous oxide the happy gas that kids inhale from those little silver containers? Isn't that what that is?
I haven't dabbled in that in a while.
Well, not for the last couple of hours, anyway. You see those little canisters everywhere. What are the kids like these days? I think they're a bit of a disappointment. How about you? Isn't nitrous oxide the happy gas that the dentists used to give you? NO2. It's a chemistry thing.
Boring.
Couldn't be more dull. Anyway, poison. It's led to the reduction of approximately 20% less poison measured at the roadside monitoring sites in the ULEZ zone. In 1 week, a 20% reduction in poison. And they say that emissions have fallen by 45% in 1 week. No, I lied about that. They said that emissions will fall by 45% within 1 year. And if that happens, I'll eat my lunch. And that's a promise. Here's a thing that experts didn't think. Or maybe they did realise this. They just didn't want to let on because they thought they were on a good deal here. Emissions may have decreased over the last week. That's because people are away on holiday. It always happens in Easter. It seems like half the town just disappears. Oddly, coming in yesterday night and tonight, there didn't seem to be any diminution in the amount of traffic, but there is in the daytime. Over Easter, London just clears out. That's the reason that there's a little bit less pollution, not because of your blooming ULEZ zone, it's because there's fewer cars on the road. Everybody's gone to Spain to enjoy the rain. Ha ha! Charade you are. You should have stayed here. Blooming lovely. Here it is. This says, I thought you was going to look for whiny, we just want Brexit soundbite. I was looking forward to hearing it. Oh, we just want Brexit. No, I haven't been able to find it. I heard it on the news. I can't remember which channel it was, but it was somebody doing a vox pop in the street. Gone to some blighted place, and they were asking passers-by, which is a big mistake, huge. Never ask a passer-by what they think, because the danger is they may tell you. And they were going on about, they're doing the usual thing about, and what do you think about the Prime Minister? He was the kind of reporter who is often stationed outside Number 10 and shouts daft questions at ministers going, are you going to resign, Minister? Those stupid questions they shout, expecting no response, but I don't know, they feel like they've got to say something to justify the expense of them being there. Do you feel ashamed, Minister? Like they're going to stop and explain themselves. Are you going to resign? Anyway, one of those people was out there asking passers-by what they thought about Brexit and about the delays and, the difference between the Norway method and the Canadian situation. Getting absolutely nowhere, of course. Nobody knows the blindest thing about it. No one's learnt a single thing in the last 3 years. And they just came up with one woman in an exasperated moment said, but we just want Brexit. I wish I had it. I really do. I'd be using it over and over again. But somebody, I can't remember the name of the fellow, but he told me to go and get a sound effect. And he called yesterday and he said, I think he apologised for telling me to get a sound effect. And I didn't realise that it was the same guy, but I've got it. The thing that you told me to get, I've got.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
And that's going to come in really useful. Because I don't, on this or any other subject. Steve says the climate change is natural and the government just see another opportunity to cash in. Did I read that one already? To cash in. What? You come up against this quite a lot. Oh, it's just it's a con. Yeah, climate change. It's just a way to make money. Really? What money are people making? Who's cashing in? And Elton in Wapping, not that Elton, surely. Elton in Wapping, actual real life royalty. Not that Queen, the other one. Elton in Wapping says, if only the protesters chose Tower Bridge, Cressida could have raised the bascules and or cleared them all in the press of one button. Bascules. Excellent word. Very impressive machinery. Coming up, God's got a plan for you, but you might not like it.
Thank you for holding. Your call's important to us.
Yes, I really mean that, Claire. You're in Surbiton, but you know that.
I know. I hear I'm Mr. Surbiton now. I'm Surbiton now, yes.
Yes,
Hello.
Surbiton.
I thought I'd let you know that it was the protesters that caused the pollution the other day.
Really?
Yeah, because I had to get from the Strand to Paddington Station on Wednesday night.
Yes.
It took me 2 hours in a taxi because it was nose to tail. Because apparently, according to the cabbie, TfL hadn't rephased the lights, so nobody could go anywhere through the crossroads. So it was like...
Can I recommend the Underground?
Unfortunately, I'm in a wheelchair and I can't go in the Underground.
Right.
So, but good plan. But actually, you can't go directly from Waterloo to Paddington anyway.
No, you've got to change. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but good idea. But for me, bing, no, that wouldn't happen.
2 hours. That must be. God, that must have cost a lot. How much did that cost?
Yeah. Well, I was a bit canny. I got in the cab and said, "Would you charge me no more than 40 quid to get there?" And he said, "Oh, it won't cost as much as that, love." And it was a young man called Bill. So unusual. And
I hear very good things about Bill.
Well, £65.60 on the clock, and he charged me 40 quid. So
Wow.
God bless him. You know, that was really nice. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't always get... Cabbies are not necessarily known for being sort of happy little chappies sometimes.
Well, they're known for expressing an opinion, whether you ask for one or not.
Yeah, but aren't we all, eh?
Well, it's for me, it's a living.
Yeah, right. So some of us get paid for it.
Well, you see, now I understand that there has been people who have been inconvenienced, but the thing is, if the climate change scientists are right, then the inconvenience that is going to be caused by whatever is coming our way is going to be way more than a 2-hour delay getting to Paddington. The Paddington might not be there anymore.
Yeah, well, can I tell you that... You're going to love me for this. The Bible says, actually, that it's all going away anyway. So, meanwhile, I'm going to have a carrier bag, please.
The Bible?
Yeah, the Bible says heaven and earth will pass away. God's plan is for it to all go. And frankly, with so many self-centered, selfish people, frankly, aren't we quite glad in a way? So, yeah...
Right, but we're not believing that, though, are we? I mean...
Yeah, we are believing that, because... I can see what the other person said about how they're making money out of it. It's true. It's all about fear and control. And if they can just frighten us to death and charge us more money and...
But charge us more money for what?
Oil or whatever.
They don't need an excuse to charge us more for oil. They just put the price up and we pay it.
Well, what I'm saying is they'll come up with an idea and say, well, for example, if you go into a hotel, they'll say, oh, well, you know, sort of, we can't, please use towels less. Because we're trying to save the planet.
Right.
The truth is they're trying to save money, and so they jumped onto the back of it. So...
Well, you could say that, but there's no getting around it. Do you at home have a new towel every time you dry yourself off? No, you like a normal person would use the same towel for about a week or so.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I mean, you're clean when you use the towel. What's the point of changing one, like an entire set every day? That's ridiculous, the way people act in hotels.
No, I can understand that, but what I'm saying is that the whole thing is based on a lie now. It's all based on jumping on the back of...
No, but it's not a lie. It's based on doing the right thing. You can pick holes in it, just as the newspapers picked holes in the people that were doing the protesting in Oxford Circus. There's one with a plastic water bottle, and there's another one who's using an unreusable coffee cup, and blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't diminish the message, which is true.
In your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, and in the opinion of 97% of the scientists on Earth who have actually looked at and investigated this issue.
Who like to be in control of everybody and say, jump, and everybody says, how high?
Claire, what are you talking about? These are scientists who are looking at the evidence. They're not controlling people.
Yeah, of course they are.
If you want to talk about controlling people, you brought it up, then religion is the thing that has been invented to control people.
Yes, I agree. Totally agree. Which is why I don't belong to a church, because I think that churches have actually become poor reflection of what Christianity is all about. Just could probably get annihilated for that by everybody, but there you go. But I just think it is. But I just wanted to tell you the other way to save the planet is to actually, if you think about hospitals, put on, instead of having how much energy they must use, If they use solar panels instead, that would release back to the country the amount of energy that they use. So there you go, just save the planet.
Well, not really, because solar panels haven't been invented that are efficient enough to actually do the thing that you just said. I mean, we're waiting in expectation for that to happen, but so far not.
Well, I put on my house in Woking, I put them there 4 years ago, and in 4 years they've paid for themselves. They're brilliant, wonderful things, solar panels.
Well, they look hideous, though. Elon Musk has invented solar panels that look like roof tiles. Have you seen that? You cannot tell the difference between the solar panels that he has invented and the ordinary tiles that you put on your roof. They cover the
glass like it, then it would be sorted, wouldn't they? You know, ordinary glass, like your living room glass. Then, if they could make that into like it was solar panels at the same time, just think of all the skyscrapers. If they were sort of like just one massive solar panel, really.
Yeah. All of these things need to get invented straight away. Scientists need to get their pencils out and start scribbling.
Sharpening them.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Claire. 0345 6060 973. Well, that was weird. She brought up religion, but then turned out not to be religious. I thought she was. I thought we were being led down a strange path there, and that we need not worry about any of the problems that are facing us because God's going to wipe us all out in the end anyway, and probably sooner than we know. But that's not what she meant. I was a little bit confused there. I didn't know where we were going. Do you know where we're going to?
No.
Steve says hydrogen power stations and cars are the way forward without question. Hydrogen-powered cars, you mean? Hydrogen is plentiful and non-polluting. Also, a hydrogen car goes for miles and then you just fill it again like you would a petrol car. Yeah, but isn't there the small issue of it exploding? You know, it's just a small thing, but don't they blow up? It does seem as though we've been conned into being dependent on oil. I'll restate the thing that I said yesterday, and it's a while ago since I saw this picture, and it was in I'm pretty sure that it was in the Design Museum, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I read it again and again in disbelief, and it was a picture taken in about 1900 of cabs in New York, and the legend underneath stated that all cabs at that time in New York were powered by electricity. I thought that it was a relatively recent invention. It's over 100 years old. And what happened in the meantime to stop all of the cabs from being electric to turning them to oil? Well, probably the lobbyists from the oil business. It's way overdue that we get rid of that. Although, speaking selfishly, I am glad that I've got another. Again, I've only ever had one car in my life. I bought a car 20 years ago, and I've only driven that one car ever since. I mean, most people change their cars, you know, like they, as soon as their ashtray gets full, they go and have another one. Not me. I stuck with the same one in order to protect the environment.
Thank you.
Plus, I couldn't afford to buy another one. But I am glad that I've got another engine car before going electric, because there's something a bit there's something of life with a car with an engine. It's got a bit of life in it, whereas an electric car, it seems likely to me that it wouldn't have that. It would be a bit lifeless. So before going lifeless, I'm glad that I've got one with a bit of vim about it. You know, a bit of oomph. Coming up, an educational interlude. I don't normally fill this podcast up with much that's not frivolous, but the chap on the next segment is really good.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Yes, we're just trying to save the world, no biggie. Ollie says, how on earth can you invoke God as though it's some sort of trump card to neglect the needs of climate change? How can one believe in a unicorn in the sky but not the reality on Earth? Well, I have to correct you there. It's not a unicorn in the sky. He is, in fact, an invisible space wizard. Or she. Sexist. But don't get me started on the religion business. Alison in Southend says, I have no cars in central London or West London. No, wait. Back up. Reverse. Boop, 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 boop. I think have no cars. See, it's not me, it's you. I think have no cars in central West London is a great idea. It might be much more enjoyable for tourists and shoppers. Exactly. That was the overriding sense that I got when I was walking around the centre of town on Thursday while the hippies were banging their drums and chanting their songs.
Groovy.
I thought, wow, this is great. And I'd forgotten that they were there initially because I wasn't going through Oxford Circus itself. I was, around, within about half a mile of there. And I'd forgotten that they were there. And I thought, gosh, it's really quiet. In fact, it's marvellous. You don't have to look both ways before crossing the road. In fact, people were walking in the road. I thought, this is great. It must be Easter. I mean, people have really cleared out. I know it ordinarily gets quiet at Easter, but this is ridiculous. This is tremendous, I thought. And then as I crossed towards them, I thought, oh, right. That's because nobody can get through, is the reason that there's so few cars on the road. The centre of London, like all the centres of cities, should be given back to the people instead of being essentially retrofitted for the benefit of long lines of stationary belching cars. We have to do it. Way overdue. And I think, I can't remember who it is and who stymied it, but somebody wanted, it may have been the mayor of London, who wanted to make who wanted to pedestrianise Oxford Street. Excellent idea. It's one of the filthiest streets in the whole wide world, and it's just an embarrassment. It's the street that tourists know of in London. Where should we go shopping? Oxford Street, they say. They hail a cab from wherever it is they are, and they want to go to Oxford Street. And when they get there, they think, get me out of this hellhole. If it were such that cars and buses couldn't go down, well, that was just tremendous. But I think somebody stymied that. Excellent idea, and it has been ruined and chucked out. Oh, well, never mind. Isleworth. Rupert.
Good evening, Nick.
Yes, Rupert.
Isn't it wonderful to see Oxford Street pedestrianised? It's been really pleasant.
It would be lovely, yeah.
But there you go, I just remembered, actually, I was rang you to talk about hydrogen, but you were talking about nitrous oxide canisters earlier.
Yes.
Which, yeah, they are everywhere. Can't help wondering if we should have a deposit return scheme on those little things.
Yeah,
there's so many of them around.
I know. You go to a car park, and the kids love hanging out in car parks and sucking on little silver bottles. I'm very disappointed with the kids these days. What the hell are they thinking about?
Indeed, there's quite a lot of metal there too. But just not wishing to be a total pedant, but you were talking about nitrous oxide. It's nitrogen dioxide is the
right.
The
that's NO2, nitrogen dioxide.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I don't know that's the problem on out of it.
Yeah, if it was an abundance of nitrous oxide, then we'd all be laughing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly so. Anyway, I just thought that on the hydrogen thing, it is a very interesting subject, and it is one that kind of, I guess, has been a little bit marginalised by the talk about electric cars. But it's been, and I think partly because it's been hyped and then disappeared and hyped, and people talk about it every decade or so. Nevertheless, it's not that the hydrogen is explosive. The hydrogen is an energy carrier, but it's explosive in the presence of oxygen. So something like hydrogen peroxide, it has oxygen in it, would be explosive. But you're right, it's mostly what's dangerous about it is that it's a very, very high pressure, sort of 9,000 or 10,000 psi when it's compressed in the tank in the car. Right.
So if you have what the Americans call a fender bender, then everyone within half a mile dies.
Not unless the gas isn't contained in a nice safe container, but they are safe. I mean, they're tested with ballistics and all sorts of things. So the things that you'd find in the Toyota Mirai, which some of the police drive in London now, which is the first really truly scaled, commercially available hydrogen fuel cell car, is you can fire bullets at it. There's loads of stuff online.
Really?
But they're really, really, I mean, they're extremely safe because it's got to contain that much pressure. Then obviously, and if it's got that much pressure in it, actually, the chances of crushing it and breaking it. It's much easier to break. You think how easy it is to compress a can of Coke when it's got no Coke in it?
Yeah, even I can do that. It didn't used to be the case, did it? You used to have to use both hands and squeeze really hard the amount of metal that they used to put in cans.
Lots more metal, yeah. Although, actually, interestingly, I went into a shop the other day and they had, we've got cans of water now.
What?
And of course, yeah, well, of course, because everyone's worried about plastic. Now we're putting everything in cans.
Right.
There's a bit of sophistry behind that. But anyway,
Yes.
but of course, because water, there's no pressure behind it for still water. The cans are all dented and crinkled because they're the same thickness as a Coke can, but doesn't have the protective force from the inside that stops it from getting all mashed up in transport.
Now, I know this is Go on, sorry.
Sorry, go on. No. I was just going to say the same would be true. As long as your canister's got gas in it, arguably it's got support from the inside. Anyway,
so why hasn't it taken off then? Because it seems like the ideal alternative, because there's no pollution, right? Water comes out, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, you're just recombining oxygen from the air with hydrogen.
So I like water. Nobody has a problem with water. And if that's the only emission, then that seems like a win-win. Plus, you can just use the car as an ordinary petrol or diesel-based car. Once you get low, you just go to a garage and you fill it up, and you don't have to sit there for 12 hours waiting for the batteries to charge.
True. And there's also an interesting kind of economic point about hydrogen, which is that it's akin in terms of the infrastructure to petrol and diesel in the sense that you can compress it. I mean, you can transport it as a liquid, but the companies that currently supply our transport fuels, energy, are used to dealing with gases and liquid. And of course, we have liquefied, we have LPG. So it's in their ballpark. What they don't deal with is electricity. And of course, we have a means of taxing fluids at the pump, if you will. And frankly, we need that tax to keep the economy going. So there is a kind of slight contradiction with electric cars at the moment, that we don't actually pay enough for the electricity to make it functional as part of the economy. But nevertheless, that's not the reason why hydrogen hasn't caught on. The problem with hydrogen, as is in comparison to electricity, is that the production of hydrogen is at the moment quite energy intensive. So the way that it's produced is typically the same way that it's produced for making fertilizer, which is the biggest single use globally. For sort of 98% or something of all hydrogen is for fertilizer, and that's produced using a process invented by two scientists in the 40s, Haber and Bosch, and it essentially requires natural gas. So you're producing CO2 whilst you're producing your hydrogen, and that's the typical process. It's not by far the only process, but it's trying to mimic what plants.
So is it more expensive per litre to produce hydrogen than it is to produce petrol?
What, petrol? No, it's about the same. So if you went to the hydrogen pump in near Heathrow Airport, actually, so if you fill up per mile, it basically works out roughly the same price per mile.
Okay, well, that's no good. We want it to be much cheaper than that.
Well, of course, because you're talking about scale at the moment, and actually the pumps out there are producing it from electrolysis. So this is the other interesting thing. The thing about hydrogen is actually works in concert with the problem. So people complain about wind turbines. Trump's very fond of saying, "Well, wind turbines are no good because they only work when the wind blows, and you can't watch telly, all that."
But don't listen to what he says. He's an idiot.
I know a lot about wind.
A lot of people do, though. That's the thing, and we need to tackle those arguments. So anyway, the point is that batteries are very expensive. They're very damaging to produce. So to produce batteries is just as damaging. I mean, you can say, hydrogen produces CO2. Well, batteries produce a whole raft of environmental disasters, and they don't really have a practical
it's particularly bad for the people who've got to dig all that stuff out of the ground.
Quite, and of course, we don't have a practical way of dealing with them at the end of life at the moment. And you're talking 500 to 1,000 charge cycles, and they've lost 30% of their capacity. So there's a whole problem there. But batteries really aren't very useful for storing fluctuating renewables, whereas hydrogen is. And you can mix hydrogen with natural gas, to decarbonize heating systems. So they're doing that in Northern Gas Networks has a project at the moment in a closed university gas system to add 15% hydrogen to the mix. And so you end up substantially, because hydrogen produces no CO2 when it burns, substantially decarbonizing heating systems that exist. So you could put it in the gas plumbing, essentially, around the country, and transport hydrogen that way. But
I am totally sold. I want some right now.
Well, the other interesting thing about hydrogen is you can burn it in conventional engines. So there's dust trucks, refuse lorries driving around Oxfordshire County Council, which are burning partial. So they're diesel engines, but they're adding about 15% hydrogen and substantially reducing the emissions from those vehicles. So it's a kind of a
right. So it's like a cocktail
bridge technology. Yeah, well, in that it is. In the sense it burns, right? You can burn it in your the rings in your cooker if you want to. It does burn completely clear though, so you need to add a little something so that you can actually see the flame. But yeah, it's a really interesting technology that if you just look at it from the point of fueling your car, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But you look at it from the point of view of storing grid electricity, because it costs no money to store it. You put it in a tank, cheap as chips. Leave it there, leave it a year, come back, still there. Leave electricity in a battery. We all know how if you leave your phone with, and don't charge it, it disappears on you. So but it doesn't, because it's complicated to explain. It's not that nice, simple narrative to say, well, we just make electricity from the sun and we just put it in batteries and then, everything's solved. And that, unfortunately, the world is a bit like that. The world of energy is actually rather more complicated than we give it credit for.
Right.
So there you go,
and thus endeth the lesson.
Well, I thought you might, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks for educating us. It's like being at school, isn't it? Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Not quite like that.
All right, anyway. So the bell has just gone, and everybody reconvene after the break for a double geography.
Oh no!
Yeah. All right. Good work. Thanks a lot, Rupert. This is an education, this show, ain't it?
No.
Well, actually, I think it was. You're welcome, and that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, you'll find the next episode gets squirted up your life as though by magic on Mondays. And don't forget, I also do a podcast with Carol McGiffin, which I think you'll find is a right laugh. It's called What's Your Problem? With Nick and Carol, in which Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while laughing our faces off. If you would like us to have a bash at your problem, send it to the following address, nickandcarol@global.com. That's nickandcarol@global.com. And prepare to be completely satisfied. I also do a podcast called The Whole Show, which is, as it sounds, the whole show from my radio stint. And I'll be back doing that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.